Have you ever looked into the eyes of someone over 80 and wondered what stories, what silent struggles live behind them? You know that look, don't you? It's not just wisdom you see there, it's something deeper, something we're all afraid to acknowledge. Why do so many people avoid talking about what life is really like after 80? Is it fear or is it denial? Maybe it's both. We whisper around it, dance around it, pretend it's not coming for all of us. But here's the thing. Ignoring these realities doesn't make them disappear. It just leaves our loved ones feeling more alone than they already are. These years can be filled with wisdom and grace, but they can also bring challenges no one prepared us for. This isn't about fear. It's about dignity, love, and being ready. It's about understanding what your grandmother really means when she says she's fine, with that slight tremor in her voice. It's about knowing why your father stares out the window longer these days, lost in thoughts he can't quite express. Today, we're going to have the conversation that families need, but rarely have. Stick around because you're going to discover 7 raw and real truths about life after 80, ones that rarely get spoken about openly, yet impact nearly every family. These aren't just statistics or medical facts, these are the human experiences that happen behind closed doors, in quiet moments, in the spaces between what we say and what we really mean. If you've ever cared for someone in their 80s, or if you know that day is coming, comment "I'm here" below, because being here, really being present, is what this is all about. And don't forget to subscribe to ElderWisdom, because these are the conversations that truly matter, the ones that prepare us not just to age, but to age with grace, understanding, and connection. Truth number 1, loss of purpose can be devastating. Let me tell you about Mr. Harris. For 40 years, he stood in front of classrooms, shaping young minds, watching eyes light up with understanding. Even after retirement, he volunteered at the local library, reading to children every Tuesday. He had this smile, you know the kind, that reached his eyes and made everyone around him feel warmer. But something changed after he turned 82. Health restrictions forced him to give up his volunteer role. Suddenly, Tuesdays became just another day. That smile started appearing less and less. He stopped talking much, even to his children. When they'd call, conversations grew shorter. "I'm fine," he'd say, but his voice carried a weight that wasn't there before. You see, after 80, many people lose their sense of usefulness. The world becomes smaller, quieter. Roles that once defined them, provider, teacher, caregiver, volunteer, slowly slip away. And with that loss comes something deeper, the feeling that they don't matter anymore, that their contributions are over, that they're just existing. Some families say, "He just wants to rest now. He's earned it." But here's what they're missing. Often these elders still long to be needed. They still have so much to give, but nobody's asking for it anymore. The devastating part isn't the physical limitations. It's the silence that follows when no one needs your wisdom, your stories, your help. But here's the thing. Even small roles can reignite that sense of meaning. Maybe it's helping sort old family photos and sharing the stories behind each face. Maybe it's teaching a grandchild how to tie shoes or fold a paper airplane. Maybe it's something as simple as being the family historian, the keeper of recipes and traditions. These aren't charity gestures, they're recognizing that experience and wisdom don't expire at 80. But purpose isn't the only silent struggle. Let's talk about something even deeper, the kind of loneliness that echoes in empty rooms and quiet afternoons. Truth number 2, loneliness becomes a silent illness. Imagine waking up every morning to silence. Not the peaceful kind of silence that comes from choosing solitude, but the heavy kind that settles in when you realize no one needs to hear your voice today. That's what 85-year-old Grace faces every morning after losing most of her friends to time and circumstance. She sits in her favorite chair, the one by the window, watching the world continue without her. Her phone doesn't ring much anymore. Her children call on Sundays, dutiful, loving calls, but they're busy with their own lives, their own children, their own struggles. Her neighbors are kind but distant. The mailman is sometimes the only person she speaks to all day. This is the reality for so many after 80. Social circles shrink not by choice, but by necessity. Friends pass away. Family members get caught up in the whirlwind of their own lives. Adult children mean well, but they're juggling careers, raising kids, managing their own aging parents. The elder becomes an island surrounded by love, but still somehow unreachable. Here's what makes this particularly dangerous. Loneliness after 80 isn't just emotional pain, it's a health risk. Studies show that chronic isolation increases the risk of dementia, depression, and even physical decline. It's as harmful as smoking or obesity, but we don't talk about it with the same urgency. The common mistake families make? Assuming someone who seems fine is truly okay. Your grandmother might smile during your weekly visit, ask about the grandkids, even laugh at your stories. But what about the 6 days between your visits? What about the long evenings when the house feels too big and too quiet? Silence can mask so much pain. That's why consistent connection matters more than grand gestures. Schedule those calls, not just when it's convenient, but regularly. Make them routine. Video chats where they can see your face, your expressions, feel like they're part of your daily life. Even asking a neighbor to check in can create a lifeline. Connection doesn't have to be complicated, it just has to be consistent. Because loneliness isn't always about being alone. Sometimes it's about feeling forgotten. Still, loneliness isn't always the most visible change. There's something that speaks even louder, something that changes the entire landscape of daily life. Truth number 3, mobility loss happens faster than you think. James had a routine. Every morning at 7:30, he'd walk to his mailbox at the end of his driveway. It wasn't far, maybe 50 steps, but it was his connection to the world, his small victory, his proof that he was still capable, still independent. Then one Tuesday morning, it happened. A crack in the sidewalk, wet from the morning dew, caught his foot. The fall itself wasn't dramatic, no broken bones, no hospital stay. But something shifted in that moment. Confidence cracked along with his certainty. The next morning, he hesitated at the door. The day after that, he asked his neighbor to bring in the mail. And just like that, those 50 steps became an impossible distance. This is how mobility loss really happens after 80. It's not always the dramatic fall that breaks a hip and changes everything overnight. Sometimes it's subtler, more insidious. Muscle mass declines rapidly after 80. We're talking about losing up to 15% of muscle strength each year. Balance becomes unreliable. Joints protest movements that were once automatic. One fall, even a minor one, can spark a downward spiral. Not because of the physical injury necessarily, but because of the fear it plants. Fear makes people cautious. Caution reduces activity. Reduced activity weakens muscles. Weaker muscles increase fall risk. It's a cycle that can steal independence faster than any disease. Families often dismiss these changes as inevitable. It's just age, they say, as if that explains everything and excuses inaction. But here's what I want you to understand. Much of this decline is preventable, or at least manageable, with the right approach. Simple chair exercises can maintain strength. Walker training can restore confidence. Fall-proofing the home, removing throw rugs, adding grab bars, improving lighting can prevent that life-changing stumble. Physical therapy isn't just for recovering from injury, it's for preventing it. The key is starting before the crisis hits, because once fear takes hold, once someone has convinced themselves they're too fragile to move safely, the physical decline accelerates dramatically. Movement isn't just about muscles and bones. It's about independence, dignity, and the ability to engage with life on your own terms. Speaking of things that aren't always visible from the outside, let's address something that families often struggle to recognize until it's almost too late. Truth number 4, memory fades, but awareness doesn't always follow. Lucille was making her famous apple pie when it happened. She'd made that recipe 1,000 times, could probably do it in her sleep. But that afternoon, she put the pie in the oven and then forgot. Completely forgot. She went to watch her stories on television, got caught up in the drama unfolding on screen, and 40 minutes later, the smoke alarm reminded her what she'd been doing. The pie was ruined, but that wasn't the real problem. This wasn't the first time something like this had happened. Last week, she'd left the iron on. The week before, she couldn't remember if she'd taken her medication. Small lapses that felt manageable to her, invisible almost, but were actually warning signs of something larger. Here's the tricky thing about memory loss after 80. It doesn't announce itself with fanfare. It creeps in quietly, disguised as normal forgetfulness. And often, the person experiencing it is the last to recognize the pattern. The brain has an amazing ability to fill in gaps, to rationalize away the moments of confusion. Lucille would say, "Everyone forgets things sometimes." And she's right, they do. But when forgetting becomes dangerous, when it involves safety issues like stoves and medications and driving, that's when families need to pay attention. Many elders are afraid to admit what's happening because they fear losing their independence. They develop strategies to hide their confusion. They write more notes. They stick to familiar routines. They avoid situations that might expose their struggles. This isn't denial, it's survival instinct. The misconception families often have is dismissing early signs as just being forgetful. We laugh it off, make jokes about senior moments when we should be creating supportive systems, because these lapses can be dangerous, not just to them, but to everyone around them. The approach isn't to take control away immediately, but to create safety nets. Simple reminders, medication organizers, timers, checklists, establishing routines that build in safety checks, gently introducing memory assessments, not as accusations, but as tools for understanding. It's not about controlling their life. It's about protecting it while preserving as much dignity and independence as possible. Because the goal isn't to wrap them in bubble wrap, it's to help them navigate their changing abilities with grace and safety. But sometimes the most painful changes aren't cognitive or physical. Sometimes they're emotional, and they catch everyone by surprise. Truth number 5, emotional sensitivity increases. The family dinner was going well. Everyone was laughing, sharing stories about their week. When Paul's grandson made a harmless joke, about how Grandpa used to be able to eat twice as much pie as anyone else. It was affectionate teasing, the kind that had always been part of their family dynamic. But something was different this time. Paul, 84 years old and usually the first to laugh at himself, suddenly went quiet. His eyes filled with tears, and he excused himself from the table, leaving everyone confused and concerned. What had just happened? Why was this gentle joke delivered with love suddenly so devastating? What the family didn't understand is that emotional regulation changes dramatically with age. Hormones shift. The brain processes emotions differently. Life reflections become more intense, more immediate. What once rolled off their shoulders now cuts deep. It's not that they're becoming weak or overly sensitive. Their emotional landscape is literally changing. Think about it this way. When you're 84, you're acutely aware that your time is limited. Every reminder of what you used to be able to do, every joke about aging, every casual comment about slowing down hits differently when you're living it every day. That joke about eating more pie, to Paul, it wasn't funny. It was a reminder of vitality lost, of a body that no longer cooperates, of time running out. Plus, after 80, many people are dealing with grief layered upon grief. Friends who've passed away, a spouse who's gone, adult children who are struggling with their own challenges, independence that's slipping away piece by piece. They're carrying emotional weight that's invisible to everyone else. The biggest misconception families have is thinking their elder is becoming too sensitive. They might say things like, "He never used to be this emotional," or "She cries at everything now." But it's not increased sensitivity. It's deepened vulnerability. It's the natural result of a lifetime of experiences, losses, and the growing awareness of mortality. The solution isn't to walk on eggshells or avoid all potentially emotional topics. It's to offer empathy instead of correction. Listen more than you speak. When they get emotional about something that seems small to you, resist the urge to minimize their feelings. Instead, try to understand what that moment represents to them. Affirm their worth constantly, not in patronizing ways, but genuinely. "Dad, you've taught me so much about resilience." "Mom, I love hearing your stories about when we were kids." "Grandpa, I'm so glad you're here with us." These aren't just nice words. They're emotional anchors in a world that can feel increasingly unstable. Emotions run deep at this age, but there's another change that's equally overlooked, one that touches on a basic human need that often goes unmet. Truth number 6, physical affection is deeply missed. Eleanor's words still echo in my mind. "No one's hugged me in weeks. I miss being touched." She said it so matter-of-factly, but the longing in her voice was unmistakable. Here was a woman who had spent decades hugging her children, holding her husband's hand, cuddling grandchildren, and now, at 87, she was living in a world where physical affection had virtually disappeared from her daily experience. After 80, especially for those who are widowed, many people live without meaningful physical contact. Think about that for a moment. Days, weeks, sometimes months can pass without the simple comfort of human touch. A handshake with a doctor, maybe a pat on the shoulder from a well-meaning friend. But real affection, warm embraces, gentle, loving contact, it becomes rare. We know from research that touch releases oxytocin, reduces stress hormones, and can actually help combat depression. It's not just emotional comfort, it's physiological necessity. Yet somehow we've created a culture where elders are often untouchable, as if age makes them fragile or inappropriate to embrace. Part of this comes from our own discomfort with aging bodies. We see wrinkled skin, shaking hands, frail frames, and we hesitate. Are we going to hurt them? Are they comfortable with physical contact? But here's what we're missing. The need for loving touch doesn't diminish with age. If anything, it becomes more precious because it's so rare. Eleanor had been married for 52 years. She was used to holding hands while watching television, getting hugs just because having someone stroke her hair when she wasn't feeling well. When her husband passed, those small intimacies disappeared overnight. No one replaced them because no one thought to. The misconception is that elders don't need or want physical affection anymore. We assume they're past that stage of life, that somehow the desire for loving touch expires with youth. But a warm hug, a gentle handhold, a soft touch on the arm during conversation, these gestures can literally transform someone's day. The advice is simple but powerful. Don't withhold affection out of awkwardness or uncertainty. Hold their hand when you're talking. Give genuine hugs, not quick, perfunctory ones. If they're comfortable with it, offer gentle massages or help with applying lotion. These aren't just kind gestures, they're acts of healing. Safe, loving touch connects us to our humanity, reminds us that we're valued, that we're worth caring for. At 80 and beyond, when so much seems to be slipping away, physical affection can be an anchor to feeling loved and significant. And finally, there's one more truth that might be the most important of all. One that changes how we should interact with every elder in our lives. Truth number 7, they notice how they're treated. Mary was sitting in her wheelchair when it happened. The caregiver walked into the room with Mary's daughter, and they started discussing Mary's medication schedule, her doctor's appointments, her dietary restrictions. They talked about her as if she wasn't there, right in front of her, using words like "she needs" and "we should" and "her condition." Mary sat quietly through the entire conversation, but later, when her daughter was leaving, she whispered something that broke my heart. "I'm not invisible, I'm still here." This is perhaps the most overlooked truth about aging after 80. Cognitive decline doesn't mean emotional blindness. Memory problems don't erase the ability to feel respected or dismissed. Even when comprehension is fading, the emotional awareness often remains surprisingly sharp. They notice when you speak over them instead of to them. They feel the difference between being included in decisions and being informed about decisions made for them. They sense when you're frustrated, impatient, or treating them like a burden rather than a person. Mary could tell that her needs were being discussed like a problem to be solved rather than explored like a person to be honored. She felt the subtle shift from being consulted to being managed, and it hurt in ways that had nothing to do with her physical condition and everything to do with her dignity. The misconception families often have is thinking that cognitive changes mean emotional changes. They assume that someone with memory issues won't remember how they were treated anyway, so it doesn't matter as much. But here's the truth. They might not remember the specifics of the conversation, but they'll remember how it made them feel. When you speak about them in third person while they're sitting right there, they feel erased. When you make decisions without asking their opinion, they feel powerless. When you rush through interactions because you're busy, they feel burdensome. The solution is surprisingly simple. Include them. Ask their opinion, even if their answer doesn't make perfect sense. Look them in the eye when you speak. Address them directly before discussing their needs with others. Use their name. Ask how they're feeling, what they're thinking, what they remember about their day. Speak with respect, even when comprehension seems to be fading. Because dignity isn't dependent on cognitive ability. It's a basic human right that doesn't expire with age or diminish with memory loss. They're still people with preferences, feelings, and the fundamental need to be seen and valued. The way you treat them in their most vulnerable moments reflects not just your compassion, but your understanding of what it means to age with grace. So what does all of this mean for us, those who love and care for someone over 80? It's not easy to watch someone you love become more fragile, more silent, more dependent. It's not easy to see the person who once protected you now needing protection themselves. It's not easy to witness the gradual changes that come with deep aging, the slowness, the confusion, the increasing needs that never seem to get smaller, only larger. But here's what I've learned from families who navigate this journey with grace. Pretending these changes don't exist doesn't protect anyone. It isolates them. When we avoid talking about mobility loss, we leave them to face falls alone. When we dismiss emotional sensitivity as just being moody, we abandon them in their vulnerability. When we pretend loneliness isn't real because we visit once a week, we leave them to suffer in silence the other 6 days. The truth is, acknowledging these realities isn't giving up hope or being negative. It's being honest. And honesty is the foundation of real love, real care, real connection. Now that you know these truths, you're not helpless. You're prepared. You're equipped with understanding that most families never receive. You can offer love in ways that truly matter, ways that address the real struggles instead of dancing around them. You can create purpose by asking for their wisdom instead of assuming they have nothing left to give. You can combat loneliness by making connection consistent rather than convenient. You can preserve mobility by addressing safety before crisis hits. You can support memory changes with compassion rather than control. You can handle emotional sensitivity with empathy rather than dismissal. You can offer physical affection without awkwardness. You can treat them with dignity even when their abilities change. These aren't huge, life-altering commitments. They're small shifts in how you approach your relationship with the elders in your life. They're changes in perspective that can transform not just their experience of aging, but your experience of loving them through it. Take 10 minutes today, just 10 minutes, to check in. Ask a deeper question than, "How are you feeling?" Try, "What's been on your mind lately?" Or, "What do you remember about today?" Or, "Is there anything you've been wanting to talk about?" Listen to the answer. Really listen, not planning what you'll say next, but absorbing what they're sharing. Offer that long overdue hug. Hold their hand while you talk. Look them in the eye and tell them something specific you appreciate about them. Not generic praise, but particular gratitude for who they are and what they've given you. You'll be amazed what 10 minutes of genuine connection can mean to someone who's been invisible for too long. Remember, you're not alone in this journey. Every family faces these challenges. Every adult child watches their parents age and feels overwhelmed by the complexity of it all. Every grandchild sees changes in grandparents and doesn't know how to respond. This is the human experience, and it's why conversations like this matter so much. With awareness comes possibility. With compassion comes connection. With presence comes the chance to make the journey after 80, not just about surviving, but about thriving in whatever ways are still possible. The golden years don't have to be perfect to be meaningful. They just have to be met with understanding, patience, and genuine love. Let me recap the 7 truths we've explored today, because each one deserves your attention and your action. Truth number 1, loss of purpose can be devastating. Remember that the need to feel useful doesn't retire at 80. Find ways to help them contribute, share wisdom, and feel valued. Truth number 2, loneliness becomes a silent illness. Consistent connection matters more than grand gestures. Make contact routine, not just convenient. Truth number 3, mobility loss happens faster than you think. Address safety and strength before crisis hits. Small preventive measures can preserve independence. Truth number 4, memory fades, but awareness doesn't always follow. Create supportive systems without taking away dignity. Safety nets, not control. Truth number 5, emotional sensitivity increases. Offer empathy instead of correction. Their emotional responses are valid. even if they seem disproportionate to you. Truth number 6. Physical affection is deeply missed. Don't withhold loving touch out of awkwardness. Hugs, hand-holding, and gentle contact are healing. Truth number 7. They notice how they're treated. Include them in conversations about them. Respect doesn't diminish with cognitive changes. Each one of these truths matters. Each one deserves your awareness and your response. Because knowing isn't enough. It's what you do with this knowledge that makes the difference. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these truths have you witnessed in a loved one? Maybe you've seen the light go out of someone's eyes when they lost their sense of purpose. Maybe you've watched loneliness creep in despite your best efforts to stay connected. Maybe you've experienced that heartbreaking moment when someone you love looked at you with tears in their eyes over something that seemed so small. Or perhaps you've seen these changes in yourself. Maybe you're watching your own abilities shift and feeling emotions you don't fully understand. Maybe you're the one sitting by the window watching the world continue while you feel increasingly separate from it. Share your experience in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to feel less alone in this journey. When we share these real, honest experiences, we create community around what's often a very isolating experience. If this video has opened your eyes to something you hadn't considered before, if it's given you language for experiences you've witnessed but couldn't quite articulate, please subscribe to ElderWisdom. We're here to have the conversations that matter, the ones that prepare us not just to age, but to love well through the aging process. This isn't about becoming experts in geriatric care. It's about becoming more human in how we treat the elders in our lives. It's about recognizing that aging isn't a disease to be cured, but a stage of life to be honored, supported, and navigated with as much grace as possible. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Thank you for caring enough about someone in your life to watch a video about the hard truths of aging. Thank you for being willing to have conversations that others avoid. Stay kind, stay aware, stay human. And I'll see you again soon with more truths worth sharing, more conversations worth having, and more ways to love well through every stage of life. The people in your life who are over 80, they're not just aging, they're teaching us about resilience, about vulnerability, about what matters most when time becomes precious. Pay attention, learn from them, love them well, because someday, if we're lucky, we'll be where they are now, and we'll need someone to see us, really see us, and treat us like we still matter. That someone could be you.